Wow. Well, I've arrived on world SCLK-05, and it appears to be just as the reports indicated. An entire world covered in Sculk. This is very unusual. The Sculk doesn't often spread beyond the caves. The conditions of your average deep dark on other worlds is ideal. The Sculk is well adapted to take root in the sturdy deep slate, and the deep caves trap the moisture that the veins and various organisms need to stay healthy. But looks like the Sculk has taken a different turn on this world, spreading across the surface far and wide. Not sure why. They always seem content far below, away from grazing animals or curious players. And if by chance they are found, well, as we all know, they have a very effective means of defending themselves. So it's unexpected. To see the Sculk thriving like this in the sunlight. This necessitates further research for sure, which is exactly what I'm here to do. There is much to be studied here, but upon first impression, what do you notice? You probably see it, right? Or rather, what don't you see? That's right. There don't appear to be mobs anywhere on the surface here. There's no wandering cows or chickens. There's no fish or squids in the water. Although there do appear to be Sculk organisms. Which I don't think I've ever seen on any other world, but here they are, spreading beneath the surface of the water and reaching to all the other land masses around us. It's very peculiar. Seems the Sculk has likely assimilated all the other life on this planet. Except for the flowers and the other plant life. That is notable for sure. Could it be that it just ignores the plant life? I mean, it's not moving. It's not creating any noise that would cause a disturbance, but... well, as we know, the Sculk requires the life force of other organisms to survive. But without any mobs around, what's it feeding on? How is it spreading? Well, I can't know for sure without doing further analysis of the Sculk here, but my guess would be that it's actually linked in with the other plants. See, the Sculk actually goes far beyond what we see on the surface here. They have an entire underground network linking them all together. So I believe they're linked in with the plants as well, via their root systems. The plants continue to photosynthesize as usual, and the Sculk is able to draw energy from them. Of course, I can't know this for sure, but that will be my prevailing theory at this time. Perhaps I should take a few of these, perform further research on them later. But I'm going to do some further exploration of this world and see if there's any hints as to perhaps why the Sculk began spreading up on the surface, and whether there's any civilization to be found here. I'm going to try to avoid walking on the Sculk to the best of my abilities. I don't know if it can negatively affect me, but On a world like this with a much more ambitious strain of Sculk, I don't want to take any chances. I'll walk around, make some notes, and I'll come back if I find anything of particular interest. I have began traveling up this hill because I noticed something that I believe will be as interests in my research. I wanted to get a closer look to make sure that I have seen what I thought I saw. I have. It's a beehive with living bees. This is unexpected. I didn't think there was any remaining animal life on this world, but here they are. And more than that, it appears as though, they're collecting pollen and producing honey as usual. And it seems that while the sensors are aware of them, they don't see them as a threat. This is very interesting. Usually the sensors don't hesitate to send an alarm off to the shriekers, which will alert the wardens below of anything that poses a threat. But clearly they don't see the bees to be a threat. It could be that the bees aren't harming the Sculk at all. But if I had to guess, I think they're also being left alive just simply because they pollinate the flowers. To keep the flowers and the trees and such healthy. And if the Sculk is subsisting on the energy from photosynthesis, then it benefits it to have healthy flowers and trees around. So it could be living in harmony with the bees. Still, this does have fascinating implications. If there's other animal life around that the Sculk can benefit from, perhaps they remain as well, and I merely need to find them. Now, night has fallen, and as in the daytime, there's still no mobs. No creepers, no spiders, no zombies. And I'd reckon that even if I were to stay here for several nights without sleeping, I wouldn't see any phantoms either. It's simply an empty world. Nothing but skulking plants. But I do wish to continue exploring. I don't really need to sleep. There's no danger here. But I will sleep anyway, just to keep my mind sharp. Anything could happen, and if I do accidentally set off some of these shriekers and cause a warden to arrive, well, I want to make sure I get away from it very quickly. I'm not prepared to take on a warden. I don't think anyone ever really is. I know some people make sport out of hunting the creatures, but that's never really been of interest to me. Well, it's now morning, and I can continue my travels. Although before I do, I am going to make note of what I've found here. Okay, I've made note of my recent observations regarding the bees, and I believe that now I'm ready to resume traveling, as, of course, further study is still required here. I have come across a cave opening in the mountainside here. The geology does appear consistent with other worlds. I can see stone, gravel, even some glow lichen, all familiar sights to the experienced explorer. But like on the surface, it seems that there are no mobs to be found here. It's nothing but more Sculk, likely descending far down into the depths. I am curious as to whether there are still ancient cities here, and I will certainly be investigating that. But for now, I'd like to continue my exploration of the surface. I see that there is coal, which is a good sign. If I do end up performing long-term research on this world, I'll need resources such as that. As I come back up out of the cave, I'm just once again struck by the eeriness of this world. How quiet it is. It's just the lack of any of the mobs I'm used to seeing is very unsettling. Interesting, I do see off in the distance there appear to be pumpkins growing. Yet again, evidence that regular plant life does seem to be allowed to survive here. It's simply most of the mobs that the Sculk has done away with. Or perhaps they were never here. But considering that there are bees, I would imagine that this world did once have the life that we're familiar with. But it was likely all taken and transformed, converted into all the Sculk that we see laid out before us. Look at this. It does almost seem like a simpler world, though. I mean, we have mountains and plains, large bodies of water, but otherwise it's not very complex. I don't see any other trees but oak trees. There's no deserts or forests. It's just these strange empty plains and mountains. It could be that the simpler geography allowed for the Sculk to spread like this, but who's to really say for certain? I must press on. Surely there's villages or shipwrecks or anything else indicating that there was ever anyone else here. I'll return if I find anything else of interest. Well, as the sun sets on another day of exploration, I think I'm gonna have to be forced to conclude that it doesn't seem like there ever were people here. I mean, I've found not only no villages, but no ruins of them. I found no shipwrecks, no ruin portals. I mean, I suppose there's a chance that the Sculk could have destroyed all such ruins, but it's just as likely that there never were people at all. Nothing to stop it from spreading to this degree. There is still a lot of world to explore, however. Perhaps I will come across people somewhere. But here, well, this is it. It's just Sculk. I believe at this point, all that's really left for me to do is take a few samples for analysis. See what we can learn. I'd like to collect one of each of the Sculk organisms. Catalyst. See if we can safely grab up a sensor and a shrieker. We can grab this sensor right here. But collecting a shrieker might be a little trickier. We'll safely put these away. Let's see if we can find a lone shrieker that can be collected. Perhaps this one over here. So again, we don't want to risk bringing up a warden. Okay. We appear to be safe. Store that away. Get back off the Sculk. Again, I don't know for sure if it can infect me, but we don't want to take that risk. I mean, if this Sculk did assimilate most of the other life on its planet, it could very well do the same to me too if I spend too much time here. Alright, well, with that, I believe I'll make a few more notes, get a good night's sleep, and then head back off-world to compile my research so far. And then I can return here again in the future to do further study. But for now, I think that's gonna be it. This is Spiral for Life, researcher, signing off.